Hi guys, so it's Friday today, and that means that I have another story for you guys, another fairy tale. And today's fairy tale is Hansel and Gretel. So, yeah, I was gonna make other videos this week, but my week turned out to be very interesting and a bit hectic. And so I just didn't have time, or I was, other things were happening. But hopefully next week I'll make more videos since I do have ideas. Especially since it's middle grade March. But also I want to apologize if you hear a beeping sound in the background. I'm pretty sure that's the smoke detector. I think it's broken and something keeps happening with it, and then people have to come and fix it, and it takes forever. So yeah, you might hear that noise in upcoming videos, and there's not much I can do about it, so hopefully it doesn't bother you too much. But without further ado, let's get on with Hansel and Gretel, a story from the Brothers Grimm. At the edge of a large forest, a woodcutter lived with his children Hansel and Gretel and their stepmother. The family was very poor, and there was not enough food for all of them. The woodcutter worried what would become of them, but his wife was more practical and not very fond of her stepchildren. She told her husband, "In the morning we'll take them out to the forest. They'll never find their way home, and things will be much easier." The woodcutter was horrified, but agreed to his wife's idea. He went to sleep with a heavy heart. Hansel and Gretel, who were too hungry to sleep, had heard the whole plan. Hansel knew he must act quickly so that he and his sister could find their way home. He crept out of the house and gathered as many little white stones from the garden as he could carry in his pockets. "Don't worry, Gretel, all will be well," he whispered, and they slept at last. Before sunrise, the woodcutter's wife shook the two children awake, saying, "Get up at once. It's time to collect wood from the forest." She gave each child a piece of bread, and the family set off. As they walked, Hansel hung back from the rest, looking back at their little house. Each time he paused, Hansel's father urged him to hurry, not realizing that his son was dropping the little white stones on the ground to mark the route they took. Once they were deep in the forest, the woodcutter sent the children off to gather fallen bricks for a fire. The children came back with their arms full and sat warming themselves while their parents went to cut more wood. As the two children were so hungry and the fire was so warm, they started to feel quite tired and drifted off to sleep. The sky was dark when Hansel and Gretel woke up. The woodcutter and his wife still hadn't returned, and Gretel wailed, "How will we ever find our way home?" Hansel, however, was calm and took his sister by the hand. "Just look at how the little white stones gleam in the moonlight, Gretel." Shining on the ground, a clear path was Shining on the ground was a clear path home. They walked all night until they came to the house at the edge of the forest. Their stepmother was astonished to see them again, but the woodcutter was very relieved. He had felt so guilty that he hadn't slept a wink. Life returned to normal at the edge of the forest, but it was not long until the woodcutter and his wife were worried again. "We must take the children deeper into the forest this time," complained the woodcutter's wife. The poor man could think of no argument against her. The children, who heard her words, knew they must act quickly once more. But when Hansel went to the door, he found it had been locked and the key was nowhere to be found. "Don't worry, Gretel," he whispered. "We will find a way home again somehow." In the morning the children were shaken awake again and given a piece of bread each, which they put in their pockets. The bread was so small it was hardly worth eating, so as they walked into the forest, Hansel scattered little pieces of his bread onto the path behind them. They walked deeper into the forest than ever before, and once their parents had left them, the children felt utterly alone. At lunchtime, Gretel shared her piece of bread with her brother, and they fell asleep. When they awoke, the sky was quite dark, so Hansel took his sister by the hand and looked for the bread-crumb path by the light of the moon. If it were not for the great number of birds living in the forest, Hansel's plan would surely have worked. But the birds had eaten every crumb in sight. Now there was no way for Hansel and Gretel to find their way home. The children walked all night and all the next day, with no more than a few berries to eat. They began to worry that they might be lost forever, when they heard a pretty little bird singing. They stopped to listen. When the bird flew off, the two children followed until it landed on a roof of a small cottage. The hungry children went closer. To their surprise, the cottage was made entirely of candy and cakes and bread of all sorts, with windows of clear spun sugar. "We'll have a feast," said Hansel, who broke off a piece of roof, while Gretel nibbled a window frame. While they filled their empty stomachs, a high-pitched voice interrupted their enjoyment. "Who's that gnawing on my house? Is it a little mouse?" Hansel and Gretel replied, "It's only us," and carried on eating, enjoying the cottage very much. The door swung open, revealing an ugly old woman leaning on a cane. "Children," she squealed, "come in, my dears. You must be very tired. Let me give you a place to rest." Though they were alarmed by the woman's appearance, the children longed to have someone take care of them, so they followed her inside. They ate a delicious dinner and went to bed with their stomachs full. As they slept, the old woman chuckled, for she was not kind at all but a mean witch. Before the sun rose, the witch pulled Hansel from his bed and locked him in the stables, where no one could hear him shout. To Gretel she said, "Get out of bed and make your brother a big breakfast. When he's fat enough, I'll eat him right up." Gretel wept and wailed for her brother, but had to do as the witch told her. Her brother ate a hearty breakfast, while she got nothing but scraps. Every day the witch would visit young Hansel to see how much fatter he had become. "Stretch out your finger, little boy," she would order. Clever Hansel realized her eyesight was poor. Each day he stretched out a chicken bone instead of his finger, and the witch believed he was still as thin as ever. Weeks went by, and the witch could no longer wait for the boy to get fat. She lit the oven and ordered Gretel to climb inside to check that it was hot enough. Realizing that the witch intended to cook her up first, Gretel said sweetly, "But I don't know how to get into the oven." "Foolish child," the witch scoffed, and stepped forward to show her. As soon as the witch's head and shoulders were through the oven door, Gretel gave the witch an enormous push and bolted the door shut behind her, leaving the witch to roast. Young Gretel ran to set her brother free, and the two were overjoyed to be together again. They decided to explore the witch's house before they left for home, and what a fortune they found! The witch had hidden boxes of all kinds of jewels and coins everywhere. The children took as much as they could carry and set off through the forest. The longer they walked, the more familiar their surroundings became, until at last they spotted their house at the edge of the forest. When they saw their father in the doorway, they leaped toward him, weeping with joy. The woodcutter could hardly believe that Hansel and Gretel had returned to him. His wife had died, leaving him all alone, and he had been very unhappy without his children. Hansel and Gretel laid out all the jewels they had found at the witch's cottage, and laughed happily now that all their troubles were over. Well, that's the end of that story. Honestly, I feel like out of the 3 stories that I've read to you guys so far, this one is my favorite. I don't know if it's my favorite throughout the book, since I did read the whole thing a while ago when I first got it, but hopefully after I revisit it in this series, I will find a favorite story. So hopefully that one's my favorite. I like to make the witch voice. I don't know if it was any good, but it's fun anyway. And, well, one thing that I found funny was when, the witch was asking, like, who was eating her house or whatever. Okay, sorry, my sister came into the room, but as I was saying, one thing that I found funny was when the witch was asking, like, who was eating her house. The kids were just like, "Oh, it's only me. Don't worry, it's me. I'm just casually nibbling at your roofs or in your window frame." Like, what? I mean, okay, like trying to, eat them was a bit, much. Like, no one could have predicted that, but probably shouldn't have expected a nice, kind old lady to open the door after you said that. I mean, not that I would go around eating people's houses, but if I would, and someone asked me if I was like who was eating their house, I mean, I don't think I would just be casual about it, like, oh, it's only me. I would have probably just been like, I don't know, hate or something, or been like, oh, I'm just admiring your beautiful windows, or something like that. I mean, maybe that's bad of me. Maybe that's like, I mean, at least they're honest, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's not good of me, but I wouldn't think about it too much since, well, I don't go around eating people's houses, even if the house was made out of candy and sugar and stuff like that. I probably still wouldn't even eat it. So yeah, that was pretty funny. Also, I'm kind of annoyed that the dad was like forgiven so easily. I mean, like, basically, Hansel and Gretel just forgive their father after he abandoned them twice, all because, well, I don't know, it made him sad or whatever. Like, don't abandon your children, even if you're, like, really poor. Because the witch could have been avoided if it wasn't for him agreeing with his crazy wife. And I mean, obviously she deserves, every bit of punishment or whatever that she would ever get, which I guess she died, so not much. But still, he's also to blame a little bit for this as well. And if I was Hansel or Gretel, I don't know if I could look at my dad the same way ever again. I probably would never trust him again, to be honest. But that's just me, and I guess it's a children's fairy tale from a very long time ago, so I don't know. Those are my 2 thoughts about it. Overall, I really enjoyed this story, and I hope y'all did too. Let me know what y'all thought about it in my comment section. And in the next episode of this series, I will be reading to you guys The Elves and the Shoemaker, which that's one that I haven't heard about before until I got this book. And wow, this one's short. It only goes from page 19 to page 21. And a lot of you start in the middle of the page, so it might even be less than 2 pages. But yeah, I didn't know about this story until I got this book, so that'll be interesting. Maybe a lot of y'all haven't heard of it either. I do like that one though. It's one of the few that ends nicely, I feel like. At least in my memory. I could be totally wrong. But for now, that is the end. And I hope you will come back for my next video and my next read aloud. But bye for now. I hope everyone is having a great day. And it's Friday, so I hope you're having a great weekend as well. Or I hope you will have a great weekend.